Hey, hope you all are doing well again. Thanks for joining Brandon and myself. We are the Chasing Clarity Health and Fitness Podcast. Today, we have episode 9, an all inclusive guide to NEAT. But first, we always like to catch up with each other. You get to hear about Brandon and I's love affair because he was in town and was here in Nashville from pretty much the day after we recorded last week all the way till Sunday. We had a great time on Wednesday just chatting. I showed him a little bit of Nashville on my side of town, and then showed him what I was going to do for Iron House 2 and all that. And then we had a really good get together at my house. About 15 people or so were at it. It was a great time. There was drinking, Jenga, Phase 10, a whiteboard, and deep conversations that were very, very cool. And then Friday we had the cornhole tournament where Brandon and I split 1-1. So it's Jeff and Jace versus Brandon and Anthony at the next one.
Keep in mind, I'm from the Northeast, never played cornhole in my life, so they whooped me the first round. Actually, not too bad. It was close. It was like 19-21. So Jeff won with the deciding hand, but then I came back and your boy got nice by the end of it.
Yeah, okay, but let's be honest. Like, Jace better be practicing a fuck ton. All right, I was having Jace can listen. Jace practice. All right, I was digging us out at 4 and 5 point holes just to get us back into the game. Come on.
You let the city boys, me and Anthony.
I know. I was ashamed. My Southern self just wrecked on that. And then Saturday, dude, we had a really cool lineup. I honestly think I'm partial, probably because I wasn't on the lineup, but I think that was the best lineup. Like, as far as like the wide range of topics that were displayed. And then anytime you get a chance to hear from Scott Stevenson, Dr. Scott, and he's up there presenting, and there's just this good debate with coaches taking place with you and Jason Coley and other coaches in the room, just being able to ask conversation, ask these questions. And Scott's very much a debater, and he likes to think, to evolve, to get you to think.
That was honestly the highlight of that presentation for me, because everyone goes up there, and I've obviously presented with you guys in the PEC, and right. I know what it's like to get up there and you give a presentation. You want interaction, but at the same time, Scott literally was like encouraging us. And like you mentioned, it was pretty much myself and now your head of training, Jason Coley's, who kind of took over the conversation and moved it forward. And it was really, it was such an engaging conversation. I have such a deep appreciation for Scott and the mentorship that he's given me over all these years. And to finally be able to meet him in person and then interact with him both personally and then within the context of a deep conversation, because that is a thinking man's bodybuilder. And that's what I love about Scott. He's a critical thinker, and he encourages critical thought from those that he engages with. So that was a huge highlight of presentations for me. And I would love if we do more in that fashion.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to open that up, but he's the kind of presenter that he could get away with that because it's so mastery for him. Like in leadership, I could probably pivot back in, but as presenting, once you get locked in the flow, it's juice, and you're riding that juice all the way through. And if someone says something, it could throw you off because it's hard to go back in.
I give him the utmost respect for that because, as you very well know, I have ADD. So if I get interrupted, I get turned off course. Yep. I mean, I'll go on a topic and I'll dive deep into it, but it might be a rabbit hole that's in like a separate direction. It's like a fork in the road, and I went right instead of going left. Our presentation was left, and right now we're in this this rabbit hole of something else. So the fact that he even has his slides memorized, it's amazing. I brought up studies and I didn't realize that they were going to be in the context of the presentation itself. And I would make a citation, within a question, and he'd be like, yeah, that's 3 slides in advance. And he would go right to it. And it was exactly 3 slides. I mean? It's amazing the mastery that man has.
Yeah, 100%. And then, just it was just a good vibe. We all went out Saturday night, had a blast, like 20 people were at that too. It was a good chunk of us. Yeah. And that was cool. We went to a couple bars in Nashville, saw, one side complete to the other complete side. Nashville was the best experience ever. It's a very diverse city.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. So the cool part though, for me, man, was I got to present Jason Coley has coming down as director of training and the guy who's going to open up Iron House 2. And it was really cool to be able to share that with him, man. But I had a moment Monday at the gym. There's this guy, he's known me since 2012. He was in that gym that I've been in. So he is like seeing me just be the trainer who was taking naps all day on the couch because I'd be at the gym from 4:30 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. I would leave for an hour, go home, get food, and then go sleep for a few hours, get up, go to cardio and do it. That was just my life. And he remembers when I got kicked out. He's like, dude, it's wild to me to think like 9 years ago, you were training out of an apartment after getting kicked out of here. and then coming back, and then what you have
Owning
now,
the
then
place.
now, and then then now a guy's moving to open up and run your second one. He's like, dude, it's just a wild story. He's like, you guys should be really proud of that. I was like, yeah, man, I am. It's cool to be able to offer opportunity to people who want it. Because I'm the kind of guy, like when I run businesses, like me and you had that deep talk. I don't really attach myself to them. I enjoy the idea of people building and helping me create things and giving them a part of what they create too. So it's going to be nice to be able to have that relationship with them. But that was a cool thing for someone to say to me this week. I was like, yeah, thanks, man. You know, because you don't really think about it. Because I'm like, I'm already thinking, holy shit. How is this thing pulling off?
Actually, it's a blessing for both of us, but it's also a curse because we get lost in our future or our forward thinking thoughts. And sometimes it's hard to enjoy the moment. And that was actually my biggest lesson of this whole weekend. I was able to turn off my phone, not look at my email for a couple hours a day or for a good portion of the day, and really just live in the moment. And that's something I really appreciate about Nashville, because this is the second time that I've been out there for a conference and I've been able to turn off. And that's something I struggle with so much. I am the typical workaholic, that's ingrained in my family. Everyone within my family are workaholics. It's just our mindset, and it's something I love. Like, I love what I do, so I don't mind being that way, but at the same time, it's come at the sacrifice of a lot of things personally, professionally, and otherwise. And so to just be able to relax, enjoy the time with I had multiple friends, shout out to my client and close friend Anthony Scalza, Jeff Hone, that came out to visit with me, to go to the conference, to spend some time for my birthday. It was incredible. So this past week, man, honestly, one of the highlights of my year for sure, definitely for 2022. And that's, even in comparison to the previous PDC, which I got to present on, and which was a great experience. But Jeff, first and foremost, I want to thank you for opening up not only your gym, but your house, your home to me. I really do appreciate it. It was great spending time with not only you, but Keegan as well, who Keegan, for anyone that doesn't know, is Jeff's son, which is a little gentleman in and of himself. That kid has a very bright future ahead, and that's big in part because of you. So that's another moment to acknowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Well, first off, your family, and second off, it was nice to have that time with you and just really scale down the holes we did in different subjects, and from just more life and philosophy and business than anything. But dude, I want to get into this because I want to give them something. We always have that rule. We only go an hour because we throw a lot of shit at people, but I'm going to throw this at you, B, because it just popped in my head. I have an idea. So today we're going to do an all-inclusive guide to NEAT. As always, we have a few questions that we've received over time that we've topicked out. I think, Brandon, what we should do, and this just popped in my head, is we should get through as many as we can today, right, in the hour. And then I say what we do is we do a Q&A, and we just post some stuff up, and then we'll just post the episode a little early. And that way we could get some questions, so we can make it really an all-inclusive guide that we can wrap up with a Q&A. So that way people, as they listen, we could field those questions and ask them in, so we could build out an all-inclusive guide to NEAT over the next couple of weeks if we need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, man. Well, that's an awesome one. So when we're talking about NEAT, we're talking about non-exercise adaptive thermogenesis. So basically, long story short, this is kind of like all the little nuanced stuff you do in your day. Do you blink? Do you move around? Do you fidget? Do you walk? Do you clean your house? Or are you just lazy ass who sits on your ass and watches Netflix? It's kind of like all these streams. There's a lot more to it, but what we really want to kind of go the direction of today is how to maintain, or how to increase NEAT to maintain a lean physique. And there's kind of like steps to it. There have been a lot of people who've tried to just go from doing nothing to jumping into a NEAT lifestyle, and it doesn't really work for them. They don't really understand different stuff. And then you have issues with people wanting to, always like working so hard to make sure that they're creating this lean physique. But there's these different facets to it that Brandon really wants to build out and go down on, because it's really a misunderstood topic, even though it's a topic that Brandon has talked so much on in the clearest of details, from G-Flux and everything else down. We wanted to do something that was very inclusive, that you guys could understand, like how to really apply it. We've already gone over enough the education, which we're going to litter you guys on, but we really want to go away with an applicational side today. So how to increase NEAT to maintain a lean physique. Number one, the benefits of increasing NEAT. I think if anything, dude, I could say it was my mental health for me. And I think that that's one that a lot of clients like really enjoy, when they get into a NEAT lifestyle, should I say.
Absolutely, man. There are so many benefits. And that's the thing. A lot of times we only, especially within the fitness industry, or people that are very physique and body composition related or oriented, we only look at the calorie expenditure side. And yes, increasing your NEAT is a low intensity, non-demanding way to increase your calorie expenditure, but it has a ton of other downstream benefits and effects. And it's an easy way, it's an easy win for us to take, where we're going to be able to improve our body composition, our health, our productivity, and even our daily routine. And so there are so many benefits that we're going to, go through, because I really think, I believe, I always say this, an educated client is a compliant client. And the reason for that is because a big part of my coaching practice, I know the same thing for yourself, are educating clients, empowering them with education, with knowledge. And the reason we do that, and that we have a research back, episode, and then we'll have an application episode, is because we really want you guys to understand not only what to do, but why you're doing it, to see some of the tangible benefits. And keep in mind, we all come from different backgrounds, and we all have different goals. We all have different health issues, or predispositions, familial, genetic, whatever it may be. And so some of these things we're going to encompass today in terms of the benefits. Some won't apply to you, but others might. And so it's going to be able to fit almost everyone out there, so that you guys can see that every person can benefit in some sort of way from increasing their NEAT. So for instance, when we look at like metabolic health, that's something that's really big in our space right now, especially with the pandemic and the situation in the last couple of years. And so increasing your NEAT is going to increase insulin sensitivity in a multitude of ways. So we know that building muscle is essentially a sink for glucose. But when you build muscle and then you move that muscle, it's one of the most important aspects of controlling your blood sugar. And when most people think about regulating their glucose, they automatically think of insulin. But what a lot of people don't realize is that up to 80% of glucose uptake and disposal in a healthy individual should be handled in a non-insulin dependent manner, which means this method should be activated through activity rather than relying on our body and our pancreas to secrete insulin to do the job for us. However, the reason why we have so many people that suffer with suboptimal insulin sensitivity, or they have insulin resistance and high fasted glucose, and they see that their HbA1c is elevated, is because they're just not active enough, especially for the calories that they're taking in. And so what we need to remember is that moving muscle is a metabolic buffer for both your calories and especially your carbohydrates or your glucose. So by staying active, increasing your NEAT, especially around meals, you're able to increase insulin sensitivity and glucose disposal while also lowering postprandial blood glucose and insulin levels. And this is an effect that we see been tried and true and tested and proven in countless lines of research. So for instance, there's a study that was done in the early 2010s, I believe it was around 2012, by Manahart. And he conducted a study where he set up individuals in two conditions, and it was a crossover study. So he had these individuals go through both conditions. In the first condition, he had participants eat a standardized breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then he had them follow these meals with a seated activity, which could be something like, going back to work. So they would go back to a desk and do their computer work, or it could be watching TV, which were two of the activities that were named in the study. But that's also two things that so many of us do. You eat dinner, you go watch Netflix. You eat lunch, you go back to your office and sit down and you work the rest of the evening or the rest of the afternoon away. Now, in the second condition, he altered that. What he did was he gave them the exact same 3 meals, but rather than having them do a seated activity, he had them follow those meals with a 15-minute walk done at just 1.5 miles per hour. So anyone out there, if you put your treadmill at 1.5 miles per hour, that's a stroll. Like, you're not going to break a sweat. It's very low intensity, but they really wanted to see the effect that just light movement that someone could do even in their house could have on their blood glucose response. And in both of these conditions, he measured their blood sugar fluctuations over the course of 3 hours after meals. So for the 3 hours following meals, they looked at the peaks and elevations in blood glucose. And in the seated condition, they saw a massive increase in blood sugar following each of the 3 meals. So they saw this massive peak, and then it stayed elevated for the majority of the 3 hours. Now, in the movement condition where they walked after meals, the postprandial glycemic excursion, which essentially is the blood sugar spike after meals, was less than half of what it was in the seated condition, even when consuming the exact same meals. This is extremely beneficial because high postprandial glycemic excursions is one of the leading indicators of someone's development of type 2 diabetes. So just the fact that they went out for a walk, this was a very low intensity activity for 15 minutes, cut their blood glucose response more than by 50%. It's amazing. Such a simple intervention that could help you not only from a calorie burning perspective, but also from a metabolic health perspective. We have so many people out there that have high fasted blood glucose readings and that suffer with insulin resistance related illnesses. and they could just do this simple intervention. So anyone out there that's looking to control that, that's an easy intervention. And then from a different side, say like a nutritional benefit side, increasing your NEAT is going to allow you to get into what I call higher energy flux state. And this is something I've presented on many times, and we'll do a full podcast on this at one point within our series. However, essentially, when you move more, you're able to eat more because you're pulling more energy through the system. So movement essentially acts as a buffer to the calories that you're taking in and makes it so that you're not only able to eat more calories, but you're also better able to regulate your appetite and manage your hunger, because higher levels of physical activity have been shown to make you more sensitive to your own satiety signals. And so that's going to help with both fat loss and then also fat loss maintenance. So it's going to help you during your fat loss phases. You're going to be able to eat a little bit more and still maintain a deficit because you're doing more work. But then also the biggest thing, we don't have a weight loss issue. We have a weight loss maintenance issue. So when you do go to reverse diet out of your fat loss phase, you're going to be able to eat more calories and also make sure that you can avoid that post-diet rebound where people regain everything that they lost and more oftentimes. And that's why we see in dietary statistics that 95% of diets fail. And what they mean by that is 95% of people who go on a diet will regain all the weight that they lost back after finishing that fat loss phase. And so this is something that we really want to avoid. And then increasing NEAT also helps with increasing metabolic flexibility, which, for those that are out there that don't understand metabolic flexibility or aren't sure what it means, it's essentially your ability to switch between utilizing carbs and fats as an energy source based on what type of activity you're doing. So because NEAT is like this very low intensity activity, you burn more fats for energy during these activities, which helps you increase your ability to spare glucose for higher intensity activities like weight training, but also it helps with you oxidizing fatty acids for fuel. So you essentially become a better fat burner as a result. So you're able to go between these two substrates and it makes you very metabolically efficient. And with that, the data shows that being active and not staying sedentary for long periods of time can improve productivity as well. So this is something that Jeff noted. And we see this in literature that it's going to help. Being active helps with increasing and improving your cognition and enhancing comprehension, especially of data. So for instance, I've seen this in my own life. I will be open. I suffer very heavily with ADD, and I always have. And this was something I was diagnosed in high school with, and I decided to go a different route, and I didn't want to take the medication that the doctors had advised me to. So I always looked to different methods. And during college, I had read a study that they showed increased reading comprehension when doing it in a movement type based activity. So they would have people in a laboratory setting, either seated, reading something and then being tested on it. And then they also had them on a treadmill, reading the same thing, very slow speed, but they saw enhanced cognition because of that. Because think about it, you're getting more blood flow, you're getting more neuron activity, you're getting more release of BDNF and all these nootropic factors that are able to help you increase your efficiency as well as your cognitive abilities. And so, in my own life, I utilize this every single day. Like whenever, I start my days with like either an audio lecture or an educational seminar on tape, or an audio book. And I always do that while I do my morning fasted cardio. And I even do so when I take a walk during the evening. And a lot of times when I'm doing things, I'm walking, I'm moving. And this is allowing me to, it allows me to better understand exactly what I'm listening to, but also retain that information better when I'm upright and moving rather than when I'm seated for long periods of time. Which usually, honestly, if you think about it, if you're sitting, if you're not a big reader, Jeff and I are the exceptions. We really do like reading, especially Jeff. He's book daddy over here. But think about it, like for people that don't like studying, that don't like reading literature, like when you stay seated, your brain is idle. You know what I mean? Your body's idle, your brain becomes idle, and with that, you're essentially becoming more tired. A lot of times people will say, well, I get really tired, I read before bed. That's a great thing if like that's, it's something that isn't really beneficial to what you're doing and you just want to kind of turn off your mind. But if you really want to increase your cognition, increase your productivity, and then also increase your comprehension of something, read in a manner that's going to, or read or study or listen in a manner that's going to allow you to get the most out of that. So you don't have to go through it multiple times over. So even now, guys, if you're listening to a podcast, put us on pause right now, take your headphones out, go out for a walk. You know what I mean? And your guys are going to retain a lot of the information that we're talking about much more. And we even see in research that, there's research that points out that when people are upright and moving, they're up to 11 to 15% more productive than those who do mentally demanding work seated. And there's additional data that shows that active learning is a better method of information acquisition for even children meaning they can learn letters quicker by moving rather than being seated in their desk within a educational setting.
Well, I also want to say in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about the importance of getting up every morning and exercising and like doing something where your mind's working as well. So I've been for 15 plus years reading while doing my morning cardio. It's just something I like to do 5-6 days a week. There's some truth to that. I always read on my lunch break. One of the biggest things I think people don't do is give themselves a lunch break. They would be way more productive if they took a little time away and just did something completely different and go back. And the other thing I want to talk about was, and I think this is helpful to know, when I talk to clients about the importance of steps, like there have been studies showing that when you have a higher step count, like a higher NEAT, your all-cause mortality drops. So if you're like that 0 to 3,000, you're more inclined to have, all-cause mortality issues be like significantly higher. And then it goes until like from like 3,000 to 6,000 or so, they're kind of like, all right, the risk drops. But people who are over 7,000 minimum, and once I think the study was 10 or 12,000 steps or something pretty much up there.
It's up to 16.
Yeah, it's up 16. That there's no difference. So you have this window. So the point of having a neat lifestyle is just what we should be doing if we really give a fuck about long-term, life, health, longevity, and that's something to really talk to your clients about because. Most clients, they think they're more active than what they really are, which is why those calculators we talked about fail them and why their Apple iWatches fail them. Like I did a workout that Brandon wrote up for me today. We did the power chest and back one. And it showed like I burned 689 calories. I'm like, I did not burn 689 calories.
Nowhere near that. So we actually see the literature, and we covered this briefly on one of our podcasts. We can see up to a max for a male up to 3 calories per minute. So if your workout took, Jeff, how long did it take you? 60 minutes approximately?
Maybe it was 70. It was 70 minutes warm up and all.
Okay. So 70 minutes, the most Jeff would have burned would have been 210 calories. And for females, it's even lower than that because they're not only lighter in body weight, but they're also handling a lower absolute load in terms of their actual weights that they're lifting. So these are highly inaccurate, unfortunately. But what we do see, we literally see in literature that people can vary their NEAT levels by 2,000 calories. So if you're not picking up all those calories in weight training, which shouldn't be the intention of weight training to begin with, which is why we're covering NEAT, you could definitely bolster your total daily energy expenditure through NEAT.
100%. But I think that's something that a lot of people should know is that really when you're trying to teach people a lifestyle, this is important to incorporate because it does help with all-cause mortality. And it's an easy translation for a lot of people to understand. And once they have something they can kind of track their activity with, they usually get better. It's like why I like Oura Ring for people's sleep. When people see how shitty their sleep really is, they will be like, oh, damn, I really need to fix that. And usually, awareness tool. Yeah, awareness to it. And I'm one of those people like you're going to have your clients and people who could take this stuff and get very OCD and down to the wind with it. But I think overall it's still helpful for people to have some idea of what they're consuming and what they're burning and what they're doing activity wise and just taking it in context to understand where to go. But I want to talk about a way now, number 2, how to increase your NEAT. So we had Brandon on my podcast, the other one I do, the Excellence Cartel. This was 2021. And he talked about the G Flux. And I was like, all right. And I was bored. And I decided I was going to do a show. That's just how I work. So 13 weeks out, I told Brandon, I said, you know what, dude, I've never done this before. I'm going to take my steps after every meal and I'm going to do 20 minutes and get up and do my fasted usual time and just stay really active. And and you're talking to a guy, I've been competing since 2006 with brittle bone disease. So like, I've been going a long time when you really step back and think about it. I'm like over 20, 30 shows now, I think. So I was like, I pretty much know what to expect from a prep, but this prep was completely different to me. Like I enjoyed this prep immensely. I was taking my phone calls while I was walking. I was listening to podcasts. I was tired by the end of the night. Like my sleep was amazing. There were so many things, but my digestion stayed on point and I did not have to drop my carbs, my fats, or I did not touch any of my macros whatsoever for the entire 13 weeks until 9 days out where I pulled down carbs by 70 grams because I prepped with Jason and he's like, we're going to pull it down to make weight. And I did. And voila. And that was my best prep. So what I did was I said, all right, I'm going to increase my NEAT by stepping after meals. I've read the studies about what it does for blood glucose blunting. and what it does for helping restore cortisol levels and normal patterning, keeping you at a less stress state. And was like, all right, I theorized all these things after chatting with you, and by far it's the best experience I ever had. And I encourage all competitors to really look at that as a facet. If you're bored with preps or you dread them, that was so different to me, and it was so pleasurable to go through it.
Absolutely. No, it was a pleasure seeing you do that, because I have put on a lot of people to steps and into increasing NEAT and energy flux, which is that's more of a multi-component system that I utilize, that's encompassing nutrition and the steps. But right now we'll focus on the NEAT component. But yeah, you did something as simple as walking and you saw these benefits, these tangible downstream benefits. That's what I'm always talking about. I always say, I want you to move more and eat more. You know what I mean? It's not exercise more. It's not go jump on a treadmill. If that's your preferred method, by all means. However, it's something that, like you said, and I know you did, because you called me many a times when you would be outside, taking a walk outside after meals. And I'm the same way. We've had many talks where you're like, hey, I can't hear you. I'm like, yeah, I'm walking through a rough area.
Yep.
Or something, you know what I mean? My service is cutting out. But that's the biggest thing, guys. Like, when it comes down to increasing NEAT, there are many methods. But here's the thing: I want to take like an all-encompassing picture and look at this, so you guys really understand what you could do. And there's an endless amount of possibilities. But we're going to give you some ideas, some encouragement, things of that sort. So, like Jeff said, he utilized walking, and that's something I'm a big fan of, because walking takes up the biggest portion of your daily NEAT levels, which is why tracking steps is such a good method of monitoring your NEAT. Because if you think about it, we can't measure the other subconscious movements that encompass NEAT. You're not going to be able to measure your hand gestures like I'm doing right now on video. You're not going to be able to measure your fidgeting. So it's hard to notice if we're doing these things more or less, especially during a prep like Jeff was in, or a fat loss phase. Whereas you will be able to notice when your step count drops if you're monitoring it. If you're using something like a Fitbit or an Oura Ring or an Apple Watch, or even just like a $5 pedometer. It doesn't have to be something like, I really want people to get past the fact that they see these barriers of entry. And I'm always about reducing effort barriers. So this is an additive thing. This is something you can add to your routine that's really simple to do. And I also find it to be, the most convenient and realistic way to increase NEAT, as you can literally walk anytime, anywhere. It doesn't accumulate fatigue like other forms of activity, such as like higher intensity forms of exercise or cardio. And it actually acts as a form of active recovery due to the fact that it increases blood flow and nutrient delivery. So you get all these, downstream benefits. But I do want to, come out, and I do want us to cover this. A lot of times the reason I utilize this higher energy flux model, and I really focus on NEAT, is because it's overlooked. That's the first thing. A lot of people overlook it. They only focus on the X's and O's of nutrition and training, which are the fundamentals. But there's a lot of things in the background that could make or break the results that you get, especially when it comes to maintaining fat, or achieving fat loss, and then maintaining a lean, healthy physique, which is what a lot of clients that come to both Jeff and myself, that's what they're looking for. And so I find that clients often get overwhelmed by all the things that they think they need to do to improve their fitness. And I've been there. I've competed 15 times over years. I've done many shoots, and I've been in the same mindset that a lot of my clients come to me with. And often when we set a new physique goal, we get into this mindset like, I must clean up my diet immediately. I must count all my calories and macros. I must train, 5 to 6 days a week in the gym. I must crush myself with high intensity cardio. I must rearrange my days around my workouts and potentially sacrifice sleep to get all these things done. And we think we need to do these things like overnight in order to see the results we're looking for. And although these changes will all make, improvements to your physique, they take time to make new habits. And this is why I'm really big into, focusing on the little habits, like focusing on NEAT and increasing daily movement with my clients, because it's something that's so easy to do. What's great about increasing NEAT is that it's not only hugely beneficial to your physique and training related goals, metabolic health, and then overall lifestyle, but it's super easy to do. For example, if you don't feel like going to the gym in the morning, like say you're going to start your day with a morning walk, you don't feel like getting ready to go to the gym, or you're someone that's starting out in their journey, or you're at a new gym or whatever it may be, and you just don't feel comfortable going in the morning, or you don't feel comfortable going to the gym in general, you could literally just throw on a pair of shoes and walk out your door. You know what I mean? If you don't have time, for instance, I work with a lot of busy professionals. They don't have time to go to the gym in the morning, or to go to the gym after their workout later on in the day, to separate some of their activity goals. If you don't have time to fit in cardio due to work, you can take a work-related call during a walk. So you could literally take what I call a walk and talk break. And so you could go out on a walk and take a call and make the most out of your time. Do two things at once. And even little habits that you implement throughout the day can increase your NEAT, like taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking in the back of the lot instead of being one of those individuals that drives me nuts, to be honest with you, where you see them that they're waiting and driving around the entire lot waiting for the next spot. Like I see that in my gym all the time. And I'm always like, dude, you're going to a gym. You're dressed like in gym clothes. Just get the fuck out of your car and go walk in there. It doesn't matter that you're in the back of the lot. You know what I mean?
Dude, I have that in my gym. I watch that. I'm just like, it's so peculiar. Like legitimately, they get pissed if I'm like, hey, you can't park here because the landlord only wants employees on this line, which I understand. Why can you all park here? Well, the landlord fucking wrote the rule and you're going to a gym. Like, what do you give a shit? You're going to walk 15 extra feet. Go park over there.
You're going to get a warm up, especially in Tennessee, which is blistering hot right now.
Oh, you're fine.
You'll get a sweat. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. One of the biggest mistakes I see many people make in their approach to fitness is they get so focused on their goals that they only see what they're doing as a means to an end. And so they don't focus enough on the habit building aspect of what they're doing. And this is why I talk about the high flux lifestyle. I'm about integrating movement and physical activity into someone's lifestyle and making it a part of who you are. Like for me, I'm someone that stays active. I'm someone that fitness is a major component of my life. It's not only my career, but it's my guiding passion in life. And I really try to get that across to clients because I want this to become part of their identity. They are someone that exercises. They are someone that's physically active. They are someone that takes care of themselves internally and externally, that cares for their fitness, cares for their health, and wants to ensure that they're living the best life possible. They're adding to their longevity, but it's not only quantity of life, but quality of life. And a lot of these little simple habits are things to increase both your quality and quantity of life. And that's a great method to make sure that you don't become that person that we've seen many times where they get lean once, or they're a former competitor, they did one show, and then they rebounded badly and gained a bunch of fat and pretty much lost all their results. And then they never did it again. And this is why I'm so big into encouraging people to incorporate activities that they enjoy doing into their daily routine, because this is all about thinking long-term, guys. Like I always say, I'm not impressed with what someone can do in 12 weeks. And I don't mean that, derogatory to my clients. I really mean that honestly to coaches, because a lot of times, you see coaches transformations, it's like 8 or 12 weeks and they're like, I can get you these results, but you never see that client again. And I think that's really imperative, like to realize if you're looking at a coach and you realize they've never reposted that client again, and you only see part of their transformation, you never see an off season, or you never see a reverse diet, you only see fat loss phases, it's probably because they just burnt them down to the ground during that 8 to 12 week diet. That person left them or rebounded terribly, and now there's nothing to show. And not only does that leave the coach in a situation where they just have to go get new clients to restart that cycle, but it also puts the client in a perspective where they have a potentially damaged relationship with food. They have body image issues. They have all these downstream effects of the approach that they took. And anyone can starve someone to get them lean once. You know what I mean? It's about being able to help implement certain habits within a client's lifestyle, and also modifying their behaviors so that it becomes a long-term lifestyle and something that they can integrate over the long term and really, benefit from. And with that, they can maintain their results long term.
I'm gonna ask you a question. I want to go down a psychology rabbit hole with you. Why do you think the opposition is for a lot of people to want to create or make changes or create new habits lies in? So say, for example, what I mean by that is, because here's what you're going to do.
My approach is, I don't think a lot of people want to make habits. I think people want results.
No, I agree. That's what I'm getting at. They want results. So you get this opposition to the underlying thing of like, but these are the things you have to do to sustain the results. So how do you work with someone through the psychology aspect? Because I know you're like me, you get busy people, and it's like, hey, look, like I get it. And I have some things I want to talk about, but I was curious to break off on this and go down what you thought it was, because I think it's just hard for people to accept that they actually have to look at life differently than what the marketing mass marketing message has been. It's just really hard to kind of get them to unwind that screw.
It's hard to break through that because a lot of us are being advertised sexy transformation as a 6-week shred, or get shredded for summer, or, get lean abs in 30 days. And we see that within, you go to a grocery store or you go on Instagram and you see these paid advertisements and they pop up all over our screen. And so it honestly warps a lot of people's interpretation or their impression of what's realistic progress, because they see these amazing transformations. They know nothing about the person's background, and they also don't know, what did that person have to do to get there? And so with that being said, anytime I make a transformation post, I'm always very transparent about the process that it took. And also the fact that my average client has been with me over a year. So, this is a long-term project. This was not a 6-week transformation. This wasn't an 8-week transformation. It wasn't something, because in that amount of time, a coach can't get to know your body, well enough to really cause that much progress. But also, what's quick to gain is easy to lose. And hear that again, guys. What's quick to gain is easy to lose. And what I mean by that is, if what you did was a means to an end, and the approach that you took was something that was extremely unsustainable. And I'm going to put the exception with contest prep, because no contest prep is sustainable. No one's going to stay at sub 6 or sub 5% body fat for a male, or in the 10 to 12 body fat percentage for a female long term. So what you have to do to get there is going to be a little bit extreme. But if you're a lifestyle client and you're someone that's getting beach ready, we need to look at this as a lifestyle and something that we are aiming towards maintaining those results. So right off the bat, I'm very transparent with clients that come to me, especially new clients that are lifestyle clients, and I make it very apparent to them, we're focusing on the process over just your goals, just outcome driven. I want them process oriented, so they realize it's not the goal that's going to drive you towards the finish line. It is the daily disciplines that you integrate into your lifestyle that day by day are going to add up, and they're going to have a domino effect where they knock down onto each other and end up yielding you the results you're looking for. Because if you only focus on the goal, and that's you're someone that relies off, extrinsic motivation, so external motivation to get to this goal, what happens when you get there? You learn no skills in that process. And that's why I'm so big into habit change and behavior modification, so that we're slowly picking up wins, but we're also integrating things into our lifestyle that become second nature, that don't require willpower and self-control to implement and utilize. Things like, for instance, weighing out my food, that's a normal discipline like that. I don't think there's no cognitive burden for me. Going for walks after every meal that I take, that's something that's just integrated into my lifestyle. I don't even feel there's no resilience from me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something I do. So I really try to focus on those habits rather than doing things. And that's why I'm so big into this energy flex lifestyle. It's not that I don't have people do cardio, but especially with lifestyle clients, it's not like they're going to, go to the gym and go on a Stairmaster for an hour in the morning, an hour at night for the rest of their life. So I'm not going to try that. I'm not going to pull that lever. Whereas like a lot of people, they take short-term approaches because they want quick results, not realizing that a lot of what they're doing, they're never going to sustain. So with that, if you can't sustain the methods that you took to get there, you're not going to sustain the results.
Yeah, a lot of the clients I attract, first thing I talk to them about is stop the automation of your house. And what I mean by that is like, do the yard work. Go out there, you mow the yard, you do the weed eating. Why do you have someone come out and fertilize your yard? Do your own bushes, your own shrubs. Because, that's just easy ways weekly that you're going to make sure you're getting a consistent amount of activity and so forth. The same with cleaning and doing home upgrades. I can say I'm a first time homeowner. So I got my house when I was 41. And for me, it was a really weird path, as like I decided, I'll get debt-free companies before I'll get a house. So, but that was what just needed to happen. And I've enjoyed learning how to do stuff around my house, and it has kept me really active on the weekends when I didn't want to get up and do cardio and maybe stay up the night before with my kid and watch TV a little bit later and kind of sleep in. So I think a lot of people should be looking at things in their life as well that they could get back into, and little hobbies they can create that would keep them active. I really work on that with people. I've had a couple of clients pick up woodworking just to kind of do it. Yeah. I think we've talked about our favorite ways of increasing meat, but let's glaze on this one real quick. So for me personally, I just like to clean. I enjoy cleaning around my house. That's the big thing.
And you can tell his place is spotless. It's beautiful. Beautiful place.
Yeah, thank you, man. And the best part about that though is Keegan's the same way, and that's what I'm like real proud about. My 11-year-old keeps a very clean house with me, but I really enjoy that one, and I really enjoy like the yard work as ways to do it. For a lot of my clients, I'm like, hey, you're just gonna have to figure out setting alarms, learning to have a little bit of boundaries with yourself if you need to take a few minutes to get some sunlight, some steps. And then a real big one I like is people walking after meals, and one that a lot of clients really enjoy, especially if you're a couple, is go take a walk after dinner together and have, that way you guys can catch up with each other by yourselves. You guys are doing this, that walking is going to help digest that meal. It's going to help get you tired before bed. You're going to be seeing the sunset. Your eyes are going to start clicking over and saying it's time to go nighty night. But just different areas like that. Think outside the box when, for favorite ways. I tell everybody it's just a matter of finding what you consistently enjoy doing day in and day out that doesn't really burden you on terms of a psychological standpoint of making you more depressed, pissed, or anxious to do.
Absolutely. No, so for my own, I'm a walking testament, no pun intended, to this lifestyle. And so,
yeah, dude, you don't stop moving during the fucking workout. You just can't. I'll be like looking around, like, where's Brandon? I'm like,
because
oh,
I have to
finally caught on.
maximize
You're doing
productivity.
steps. I know, but finally I caught on what you're doing.
Yeah, so I do paces. So what Jeff's alluding to is the fact I don't sit during my workouts. If I have a 2-minute rest period, I'm going to walk around the gym. I'm going to pace, because with the constraints of my lifestyle, I have to maximize every minute that I have free. So if I'm in the gym, technically I'm not working. That's one of the only periods of my day that I'm not working. And even then, sometimes I'm answering emails. So I go to the gym very early. The gym's empty. So I make sure I walk around the gym, and I get 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6,000 steps right there. So I pick up, that's a daily win, because what would I be doing if not? I'd be sitting down probably on my phone, like every other jackass in the gym, where they're just sitting there doing nothing and wasting their time. So I really try to get a 2-for-1. And also, we know that just walking increases active recovery. So it's an active recovery modality that's going to increase blood flow. It's going to help with nutrient delivery. I'm drinking an intra-workout shake, so it's helping with glucose uptake. So there's other benefits from that. It's clearing out, some of the metabolic byproducts like hydrogen ions, lactate accumulation. So, if you guys ever do legs really hard and you get that really tight feeling in your legs, you feel like you're cramping. If you just sit there, you're going to lock up. You're going to have such an accumulation of metabolic byproducts. But if you move around, you're going to help move and facilitate some of that stuff. We also see that in and of itself decreases delayed onset muscle soreness, because you're moving nutrients around. And so what I do every day is I'm big into like a few habit stacking techniques that I utilize to increase, to hit my steps and increase my NEAT as a result. So I start every morning with a fasted walk. And I find this to be a really effective and productive way to start my day in an active way. And I always try to do it outdoors, because I want to get sunlight exposure early in the day, because even just spending a few minutes outdoors, like I have clients that can't do a morning walk, but I tell them just walk outside your door, just to get this sunlight exposure. But if you could walk, that'd be highly beneficial, because you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But we see that when you go outside and get sun exposure early in the day, that you set up your circadian rhythm, and essentially you're setting up your sleep and wake cycles. So getting early sun exposure early in the day actually leads to greater sleep quality later in the day, because you've aligned your circadian rhythm. Yeah. And it also helps to balance out hormones like cortisol and melatonin, which are counter-regulatory. So in the morning, you're still going to have some, you're going to have melatonin that's still floating around your system. You're going to get a cortisol awakening response. So you're able to secrete cortisol, wake yourself up. Getting sunlight is going to increase that cortisol response early in the day. But keep in mind, like, I'm not talking about cortisol like a lot of people do, where they see it as this negative hormone. No hormone at all is negative. There's hormones that can be in too high of a range and too low of a range, but in the optimal dose, they all serve a purpose, because our biology would not have set us up to secrete and create hormones that were negative and deleterious to us. Anything in excess can be bad, but cortisol is a great an energy liberating hormone. So it's going to help wake us up. So getting that sunlight exposure is going to help increase that. And then once, then I get into my workday, and during my workday, I like to take frequent breaks throughout that day. And I try to get in some movement during those breaks. So usually I'll just go up, I'll get up and move for a few minutes every hour. And then I take a lot of my calls in a walk and talk manner, where I'll just throw on headphones and head out the door. And then another one of my favorite ways, which Jeff now does, he's been doing the past year, is the post-meal walks. Yep. And this is really, first of all, it's an easy habit stacking technique. And the reason I say that is because I'm going to eat multiple times a day. So I might as well throw in some movement after, especially because we've seen, like I mentioned in the study, that it helps to minimize the post-meal blood spikes in blood sugar and insulin, which increases insulin sensitivity and nutrient partitioning. It's actually, in another study, was directly compared to metformin, which is the leading type 2 diabetes medication. And it was, shown to be twice as effective. So 10-minute walks done 3 times a day after meals was shown to be twice as effective as the leading medication for type 2 diabetes management. It also decreases gas and improves digestion. And it also, like I mentioned before, decreases DOMS and increases recovery. So these are all little things that I throw throughout the course of my day, but then I just have little active habits. So, and these are things I suggest to other people. Use a standing desk, stand instead of sit, take a walk during your lunch break. Especially if you have, if you work in a corporate office, I used to always do that. I would spend 20 or 30 minutes, when I had a corporate career and I was in an office, I'd spend 20 or 30 minutes eating, and then I'd spend 20 or 30 minutes walking, because I was, if not, I was just going to sit there on my phone or go back to the office and start working early, because that's just my personality. So I utilized the time to the best of my ability and maximized it. Or a lot of times I'll encourage clients to find a new form of recreation. So that could be finding a new sport or hobby. I have some guys that are participate in intramural like softball leagues or soccer leagues or something. Often I'll ask them like, what did you like doing growing up? You know what I mean? Especially when I have people come to me that are already in their late 30s or 40s, and they tell me, I wish I looked like I did when I was 20, or I was in really good shape during college and through my 20s. And then I ask them like, what activities were you doing besides, lifting in the gym? And they'll say, I used to be on a softball league, or I used to play pickup basketball. I get them doing that, and that's going to increase their need. And it's something that they enjoy. They get to bond with other people. And so it's something that they can easily do, and they don't look at it as a form of exercise. And that's huge. We don't want to put a mental burden on this. We want this to become part of your lifestyle.
Brandon, now you did have down here at number 6, simple ways to increase energy expenditure during your workday. Do you want to go ahead and touch on that since you're already going down this rabbit hole? I think we've pretty much cleaned up a bunch of different things on this one. So I just wanted to make sure before we double lapped ourselves.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to cover before we finalize that is just the drawbacks of low NEAT, because
no, I want to go there next. I want to do why we were on the topic of things to do to improve your energy expenditure, kind of clean all that out because we're on NEAT. Or do you want to do that other one? Totally asking.
No, we're good. Yeah, okay, we can go on to the next one.
No. I want to go back to that one. I was just wanting to go to this one because I thought it would make sense because you've been talking about your workday, simple things you've done.
Oh, absolutely. You got just ask me the question. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, simple ways to increase energy expenditure during your workday.
All right. So, one of the biggest reasons why I find that many people struggle with having low NEAT levels is because of their workday, because of their job. They stay seated for such long periods of time that if you're not active and aware of what you're doing and the movement that you're taking, that's why I'm such a big fan of activity trackers and of Fitbits and things like that. You're going to lose sight of it, and then you're going to feel overwhelmed. Like if you had a step goal and you've been seated all day and you're 2,000 steps in and your goal was 10,000, give or take, then you're going to feel overwhelmed and less likely to hit it. And so what I try to do is look at all the times in the day where you sit most and work on improving your approach and how you structure your day in just terms of your activity habits. So, like I mentioned that I do, start your day off with a morning walk before your workday starts. You could stand while at your desk rather than sit. Take a call on a walk rather than, sitting down in your desk. Now, these are all things you could do. Another thing, a huge thing, I have a lot of clients that they're busy busy professionals, and they have a lot of stress due to the demands of their job. They're in a very corporate atmosphere. I work with a lot of professionals out of New York City. And so it's a very competitive, cutthroat industry. And I'm sure many can relate to that. And with that being said, when you're stressed at work or have an issue at work that you can't solve because you're just in that moment, you're in that kind of negative atmosphere of your desk or of your meeting room or whatever it may be, instead of sitting and ruminating on it, go for a walk and alleviate your stress through that. And then it's also, like I mentioned, it's going to increase cognition. So it's going to help with your problem solving skills. It'll help you walk your way through the problem. You know what I mean? Literally and figuratively.
100%.
So what I really like to do is just inject some movement into your day in any form that you can, even if it's for a few minutes. I want to make this very apparent. 3 minutes is better than 0 minutes. It could literally be, as few as 3 to 5 minutes, just something that's keeping activity. And remember, it's not like you're going for active cardio where you have to keep the clock on. Just move, and you could take and really realize these things accumulate over time. So we're looking at steps over time. So it's going to be something that you could accumulate throughout the course of the day. You can get 500 steps here, 1,000 steps here. Other things that I like to do is, try to make I'll put for myself an alarm because I get really locked into I turn off all applications when I'm doing my work, and I'll get really locked in. I'll forget the time, honestly. So what I try to do is every hour, get up for 5 to 10 minutes. And so with that, if you guys do that over the course of an 8-hour workday, you're going to accumulate 80 extra minutes of activity with absolutely no time added to your workout routine. So just by getting up for 10 minutes every hour throughout an 8-hour workday, you're literally picking up free time. And so what I want to get across to people is it's not that you guys can't sit, you know what I mean? But there are times that to sit and relax and times not to. And sitting should be used as a way to rest from doing something active, not as a default activity. And that's really what I see. A lot of people are kind of unaware and they go through things mindlessly, and sitting is a big component of that. They sit, on their way to work and their commute. They sit at their job all day in their office. Then they sit on the way home. Then they get home and they sit again. It's such a sedentary lifestyle. And that's why we have so many negative effects. And it's something that's going to affect your metabolic health, your body composition, your energy expenditure. And so really, look to increase your NEAT, and it's going to help to improve your body composition. It's going to help your cognitive abilities. I mean, we even have studies that show that office workers that get up and move regularly throughout the course of their workday increase their productivity by 10%. So don't think like it's going to just detract from what you're doing by not staying at your computer. If you have a call, go take it instead of sitting at your desk. If you could do emails on your phone, take a 10-minute walk break and just go outside. It's probably going to give you not only some fresh air and a refreshed start, but it's going to help you when you do get back to your desk and back to your work, you're going to be in a better state of mind. You're going to have some endorphins rushing, some neurochemicals that are going to help, like brain-derived neurotropic factor, that are going to help you be more productive even when you're sitting there. And we also have studies that show like an increase in energy expenditure, even in the setting of an office. So for instance, this was something I had covered in my Energy Flux presentation when I was at the PC, was in 2007, Levine did a study where he compared using a walk and work desk. So it was essentially a treadmill desk and walking at 1 mile per hour. So this is literally a snail's pace. And he compared that to sitting and working for 4 hours a day. And just by transitioning to a treadmill desk at 1 mile per hour, which is the starting speed of a treadmill, it was shown to increase energy expenditure by 119 calories per hour. And this is like a speed where you guys would actually, like, if you ever turned on a treadmill and you tried to walk on it, it's too slow for you to even walk on for the most part. Like, you're going to feel like you're not doing anything. So you can even increase that. And there's another study that looked at just taking little movement snacks. So little movement breaks where they would plug in 5 minutes every hour, 5-minute walk break every hour, and showed that it increased energy expenditure by 132 calories over an 8-hour workday and 660 calories when done for a full work week. So these are easy wins that you could pick up, especially if your goal is to be lean, get leaner, or if your goal is to be able to eat more calories and stay lean.
I think you gave a hell of a breakdown there. Now, the next one, we actually did have a question that we were going to talk about the benefits of sitting less, but I think we've almost like smothered and covered that with everything we talked about. You should be standing, doing your best you can. And there's other stuff to it. And if we have time, we'll get to it. But I want to give you room to close this up because we're coming in on the last 10 minutes or so, about the drawbacks of having low NEAT levels. We already talked about all-cause mortality from, taking less steps every day early on. But what are some drawbacks, my man, of having low NEAT levels?
Well, honestly, everything that we spoke about, if you invert it, it's going to be the drawbacks of having low NEAT levels, because we spoke about all the things that that increased NEAT has for you. But let's think about it from I was looking at things from an evolutionary perspective. And if we think about it evolutionarily, we were meant to move. We were meant to walk and do most of our activities manually on foot. And if we look at it, if you go back to evolutionary history, just 200 years ago, just a couple hundred years ago, 90% of our world's population were in agricultural communities, and they were moving for the majority of the day. However, in today's society, in our modern society, we've become extremely sedentary and spend most of our days seated, whether that be at work or be while we're commuting, whether that's to go to work or to see friends or to go to places, we're always sitting down. Whereas just a couple hundred years ago, we would have done all those things. We would have, instead of taking a drive with one of our buddies, we would have went on a walk to wherever we were going. Instead of, driving to work, we would have walked. Instead of, going out to the supermarket through our car or calling Uber Eats to deliver something to us, we would have went and, harvested food. And so the issue with having low NEAT levels and not being physically active is it causes a ton of downstream effects that impact our body composition, results, and our health. And for instance, if you look at the literature on having long periods of sedentary time or time seating, we see that it decreases metabolism and lowers the amount of calories you burn per day, which can make fat loss more difficult, as well as maintaining fat loss and your weight loss results extremely difficult. It increases your waist circumference. It impairs metabolic health by increasing the likelihood of things like insulin resistance, high blood pressure, and high triglycerides. It worsens your posture. And actually, if you look into pain science literature, it actually is the leading cause. So sitting, excessively sitting, especially in the context of an office environment, is the leading cause of lower back pain. It increases, like Jeff had mentioned, the risk of all-cause mortality. And it increases the likelihood of developing metabolic syndrome and suffering from cardiovascular disease. So we see all these, downstream effects. And then in addition to that, for our body composition oriented individuals, like many that listen to this podcast, having low NEAT has been caused to weight gain. So there's studies that show that when you take someone who has a physically demanding job and move them into an office job, like in studies, they will gain weight as their calorie intake will remain the same, being unable to regulate their appetite to their new level of activity. And there's also data that reinforces the fact that those of us who are more physically active do a better job of regulating energy intake. So you're more in tune with how much you're eating in relation to how much you need to eat when you're more physically active. So we also have to keep in mind that if you're lean, like say you're an active individual, that does not mean that you're exempt from any of these effects. So just because you're lean and you exercise a few times a week doesn't mean that being sedentary won't affect your health. And we see in lean individuals being sedentary throughout the day is a risk factor that's independent of obesity. So in terms of the likelihood, to deal with chronic disease illnesses like insulin resistance, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, even being lean is not going to save you from that, even exercising. If you're not physically active, you're sitting, they're sending two different signals to your body. Sedentary activity and actual exercise, two different signals to the body that get sent.
Yep.
And so excess sitting, regardless of who you are, is harmful for your health, which is why, you should be actively aware of how much or how little you're moving, as we see negative effects from just even a few days of low NEAT levels. So even if you're a highly active individual, if you go into a research study where they decrease your NEAT substantially, we see negative metabolic effects. And there's actually a study that was done last year, 2021, where researchers looked at how changing someone's daily step count influenced the metabolic response that they had to meals. And what they did was each participant did 2 days of their regular activity levels. And these were healthy young adults. So they were fairly active. And what they did was they had them do 2 days, the first 2 days of the study, they did their regular activity levels. So they hit their regular steps. And then it was followed by 2 days of activity levels and steps that they were assigned to. And they separated participants into one of three groups based on these activity levels and different step counts. So they had what was considered a low activity group that was around 2,700 steps per day. They had a limited activity group, which was 4,800 steps per day. And then they had a normal activity group, which was 8,500 steps per day. So this was around the individual's average step count per day. And on the evening of the second day of doing their assigned activity levels, all participants completed 1 hour of moderate intensity exercise. So towards the end of the trial, they all did a bout of moderate intensity exercise. And the next morning, they received a high fat tolerance test. So essentially it's a challenge, what they call a challenge test. So it's to see, what's your postprandial, what's your post-meal response to these nutrients? And in the low and limited group, they saw no significant benefit in metabolic response after an hour of the running. However, in the normal group, it was the only group, like the normal step count group was the only group to show a metabolic benefit from the exercise bout. And what they found was that the 2 days of lowered NEAT levels via the reduction of steps to approximately like 2,700 to 5,000 steps per day, even in young, healthy, active individuals, impaired their ability to get a benefit from an acute bout of exercise and to increase fat oxidation and attenuate postprandial increases in triglycerides. And this suggested that what's called exercise resistance occurs in individuals who take approximately 5,000 or fewer steps per day, whereas 8,500 steps per day protects against exercise resistance and fat metabolism. This pretty much means like that fat metabolism is influenced more by the inhibitory effects of inactivity than by the stimulating effects attained from the 1 hour bout of moderate intensity exercise. So if you're sedentary, even if you exercise, so say you stay seated all day at your office, and then you decide, hey, I'm going to make up for it by going to the gym and doing some cardio. That is not undoing the deleterious effects that having been seated the whole day. And think logically, if you're at your office 8 to 10 hours a day, if you do 30 minutes or to an hour at night, but you were seated that whole time, the majority of your day, you're not going to undo that. The ratios just don't work out in your favor. So within this study, we see that it takes about 8,500 steps per day to lower the metabolic impairment effects that having a low step count has on your ability to handle fats and carbs, because this is essentially what this study was comparing. And when it was compared, that amount of step count was compared to the limited and low step count groups who had lower step counts total, it totally negated the effects and the benefits from that hour of intense exercise.
I personally tell everybody, if you sit a lot, it's just not going to be good for you. Like you just need
sitting's terrible for us.
Yeah, it's really not the best. You're better off lying down. And if you're going to do anything, I guess. But well, dude, that was all of them. We got every single one of them. So here's what we're going to do, guys. That's like a first for Brandon. I almost want to applaud Brandon right now because he smoked it out. I see him over there all glistening. He's hot. Gets all fired up. But what I'd like for you guys to do is hit Brandon and I up. We'll release this episode. It normally comes out on Friday. So when you hear this, it'll be Thursday. And that will give us a little time to get a couple of questions. And we'd like to be able to do a little Q&A there. And then in the meantime, we'll get together and put this together, B, for next week. Where can everybody find you, Brandon?
Guys, feel free to reach out to me at Brandon DeCruz _ or on my email at bdecruzfitness@gmail.com.
And I am Jeff Unbreakable Black on there, and Jeff at relentlessforever.com. All right. Well, B, thanks, man. I look forward to chatting with you next week. Guys, be sure to like us. Be sure to keep sharing us. We really do appreciate it. Be sure to give us the ratings.
Subscribe.
Yep. Subscribe. The good, the bad, the ugly. We want to know because Brandon and I just like to get better. So you all have yourself a great day. Bye.